Thanks everyone for joining us. I would like to introduce Charlotte Tierney and Paulina Deneva, and they are both here with us today. They're part of my team at the Office for Coastal Management. I'm located in Charleston, South Carolina, but we have Charlotte Tierney here, who is a geospatial analyst in support of the Office for Coastal Management economics team. She works with large economic data sets. She develops this data viewer, and she does coding for marine economy data. We also have Paulina, who is located in the Pacific region, and she disseminates data. She works on developing and leading economics trainings, and she contributes to applied research. And her interests lie in benefit cost analysis and ecosystem service valuation. So I will hand it over to the two of you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our presentation. Today we're going to talk about mapping employment in coastal inundation zones, communicating business and industry risks. Before we jump into the data viewer itself, I'd like to take a minute to talk about what motivated us to create the underlying data. First, let's talk about the people who live near the coast. In 2023, 128 million people resided in a coastal county. That's nearly 40% of the U.S. population. Lots of folks also work along the coast. In fact, in 2022, nearly 59 million people worked in coastal shoreline counties. When we look at defining economic data, all of the economic activity that occurs along the coast is known as the coastal economy. Within this number, approximately 3 million people are employed by the marine economy. The marine economy is a subset of the coastal economy. It captures the economic sectors that depend on the oceans and Great Lakes, including but not limited to living resources, marine construction, marine transportation, offshore mineral extraction, ship and boat building, and tourism and recreation. Most recently, in 2023, the marine economy accounted for $511 billion, or nearly 2% of all U.S. gross domestic product. Coastal areas are home to a significant share of the U.S. population and economic activity. Within these regions, the marine economy plays a critical role. And unlike many other sectors, it can't relocate inland. It depends on access to working waterfronts to function. At NOAA's Office for Coastal Management, we've developed tools to help communities understand and prepare for coastal hazards. From the sea level rise viewer to the coastal flood exposure mapper, and most recently the sea level calculator. Building on that foundation, we saw a need to explore coastal risk from a different angle: the potential economic impacts of flooding. Specifically, we asked, under various flood scenarios, how many jobs and businesses will be at risk. From there, we focused on generating data sets to support local decision makers, emergency managers, and planners. We also wanted users to break down results by industry, helping them identify which sectors face the greatest risk and prioritize adaptation strategies accordingly. We partnered with the Bureau of Labor Statistics in order to accomplish this goal. BLS is a natural fit for this work because their data covers approximately 95% of all U.S. employers. That gives us an incredibly strong foundation for analyzing employment and business exposure along the coast. BLS maintains a statistical business register, which is built from their quarterly census of employment and wages. This register includes employer-level data like employment, wages, business names, addresses, and geographic location details. Under this partnership, BLS grants NOAA access to this register, and NOAA then overlays coastal hazard footprints, like the sea level rise or storm surge, onto the BLS data to identify which businesses and jobs fall within these hazard zones. Each year, NOAA runs the analysis and BLS reviews the results. To protect business confidentiality, BLS aggregates and approves the final outputs before they're published, and this collaboration ensures that ECIZ maps are both highly accurate and built on the most authoritative employment data available, giving communities a powerful new lens to access flood risk assessment through economics. Altogether, this This brought together the release of the Employment and Coastal Inundation Zones dataset in 2022. This dataset has historically been published as a series of Excel and CSV files, which report the number of employers and the number of jobs within various inundation footprints, including the FEMA Special Flood Hazard Areas, the sea, lake, and overland surge from hurricane categories 1 through 4, or SLOSH, the tsunami inundation zones, and NOAA's sea level rise 1 through 10 feet. The data in this tool are reported at state and county levels. The state level data shows the number of businesses by job and by industry and by marine economy sector. At the county level data, the industries are shown in aggregate and by marine economy sector. This tool aims to serve the people in these areas. In economic development and planning, such as city planners, floodplain managers, and others involved in economic development, who can hold more informed conversations about future development and industry expansion. It also serves coastal managers and decision makers who can use this information to identify industries and employees at greatest risk from infrastructure damage and lost wages. Emergency management. If we know how many employees may be in inundation zones, we can help emergency managers better plan their outreach and evacuation efforts. Knowing which industries are most at risk is also important. And lastly, economic advisors, who can use this information to estimate potential negative economic impacts to the marine and local economy. This dataset is useful for folks like emergency managers, coastal planners, economic development agencies, etc. Unfortunately, the tabular format are not particularly accessible to a non-technical audience, at least not at first glance. You would need to put in some work to turn a spreadsheet like this into something compelling for your local audience. So our goal, we wanted to present this data in a way that was engaging and user-friendly. And here is Paulina to show what we came up with.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. And I am going to take over screen sharing at this time to walk through a demo of the data viewer itself. Alrighty, so when you first open the viewer, you're going to see a welcome screen with a Get Started button in the middle, and beneath that is a disclaimer explaining the purpose and some important limitations as it relates to the data itself as well as the data viewer. So we're going to get started now by clicking the Get Started button. Now, when you enter into the data viewer itself, you are going to, let's reset ourselves here. I jumped the gun. I already have us in Harris County. Alrighty, we will jump to Harris County in just a bit. Before we do that, I do want to draw our attention to the banner up at the top, which says Employment and Coastal Inundation Zones Data Viewer, as well as some of the icons within the banner. So on the far left of the screen, you will see a Home button. So clicking on this would take you to our data content page on the NOAA Digital Coast website. And that's where you can download the full Excel and CSV files and also access any related documentation for the data viewer on ArcGIS Online, including the web map and the feature hosted layer. Next to this button is an info icon. So clicking on this would open 4 short panes, each describing our hazard layers. So we have a description of FEMA special flood hazard areas, tsunami hazard areas, hurricane storm surge, and sea level rise. And we do plan on expanding upon the panes to provide more information in the future, but for right now, we've got these information panes here. And all the way on the right-hand side of the screen, there is also a share button. This allows you to post the tool to various social medias. You can also share kind of a shortened link to the data viewer, and you can even embed it within your own tools or within any reports that you may have. Alrighty. So now when you land on the map, the tool does always default to the FEMA Special Flood Hazard layer, and you'll know which layer is active by looking at the row of hazard buttons above the map next to the search bar. And whichever one is selected is highlighted in this light NOAA blue. Now, to explore a specific location, you can either search for a county in the search bar or click directly on the map to select one. Now, I had already searched for Harris County, which is why it's populated, but we can search for it one more time to demonstrate what happens when you click on a county. There we go. So when you click on a county, it's going to zoom into that county. It's also going to populate a statement above the map, and it's going to populate a pop-up. All right, so again, we're starting with Harris County, Texas for the FEMA Special Flood Hazard Area. So once selected, you're going to see several key elements. On our left-hand side, we are going to show the left-hand side, includes a legend which shows the percentile rank for the number of establishments in the FEMA Special Flood Hazard Area. And a quick explanation as to what percentile rank is. It tells you how the county compares to other counties in the data set. So let's say a county is in the 90th percentile. That would mean that it has more businesses within that flood zone than 90% of all of the analyzed counties. Now, below the legend itself, we do have kind of a plain language statement which attempts to translate that percentile rank so that users can really quickly understand what we're trying to convey here. And in fact, we did select Harris County because it ranks higher than 100% of all counties analyzed in this data set as it pertains to FEMA special flood hazard areas, right? So that means it has more businesses within a FEMA special flood hazard area than all of the other counties analyzed in this data set. Of course, again, this is focused on coastal shoreline counties throughout the United States. Now, on the right-hand side, we have a pop-up panel. The pop-up panel shows two things. First, we have a table, which indicates the number of establishments and jobs in Harris County in the special flood hazard area. We include the number of establishments and jobs in the special flood hazard area which are not in the marine economy. So for Harris County, this is nearly 9,000 establishments and over 52,000 jobs. But we also include the number of establishments and jobs that are within the marine economy for anyone who might be interested in understanding the number of jobs kind of more so directly on the waterfront. Over 1,000 establishments and over 6,800 jobs in the special flood hazard area. And then, of course, below that, we include a total nearly 10,000 establishments and over 59,000 jobs. And for anyone who's particularly interested in the marine economy, we also include the percentage of marine establishments and jobs that are exposed. Below our table, we also have a pie chart with the proportion of county establishments in the special flood hazard area. So this pie chart includes the number of jobs and the number of establishments and the percentage of establishments outside of the flood zone, so outside of the FEMA special flood hazard area. Beyond that, as you can see, that is a majority of establishments in Harris County, though that is not the case for all counties. Beyond that, we also include a sliver for the non-marine establishments in the special flood hazard area and the marine economy establishments in the special flood hazard area. And if you're interested in learning more about your county's marine economy from here, you can click on this. This will take you to a separate tool that we have called eNow Explorer for that specific county, and it will allow you to explore your marine economy at greater length. Now, before we move forward to another hazard, I do also want to draw your attention to this general statement, which is populated above the map for Harris County. It's small, so I'm going to read it to you, and then we can debrief it together. It states, Harris County contains areas mapped for the following inundation zones: FEMA special flood hazard areas, hurricane storm surge, and sea level rise. In 2021, there were 124,434 establishments, over 2.2 million jobs, and a labor force of nearly 2.3 million in Harris County. So that's all to say this statement will be populated for every county. It explains the areas that have been mapped within this data viewer across the four hazards that we're analyzing. And for 2021 in particular, it also includes the number of establishments, the number of jobs, and the labor force across the entire county using data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Okay, so that's a statement that you can always see for each county. Now, if you're particularly interested in one county, you can absolutely toggle between different different hazards, and I can show that with right now with Harris County. So we'll toggle over to tsunami hazard. This is outside of the high-level tsunami mapping hazard area, so we don't have any data for that. But as our statement indicated, this area is mapped for hurricane storm surge. So if you were to click on that, you would get you would toggle into the hurricane storm surge view. And of course, we also have sea level rise. So that is something that's an option to you if you wanted to stay within one county. Now, that being said, we're going to go over and explore some of the other hazards. So for tsunami hazard, for example, we're going to move over from the Gulf Coast region to the Pacific region, and we're moving into Honolulu County. So again, we have our statement above the map about Honolulu County indicating that it's been mapped across all 4 hazard areas. Beyond that, again, we have our percentile rank legend on the left-hand side. And again, we selected Honolulu County because it ranks higher than 100% of the counties analyzed in this data set. So we just kind of wanted to give you a flavor there of the higher ranking counties across the data set, but across different regions as well. Now, this particular pop-up for tsunami, it's nearly identical in terms of the template that we used or that we built out on the back end as FEMA Special Flood Hazard, as the FEMA Special Flood Hazard view. So again, you're going to see a table which includes the number of establishments and jobs that are in a tsunami hazard area, both from the perspective of the coastal economy and the marine economy. And again, you're going to see the proportion of the county's establishments in high-level tsunami hazard areas. And as you can see, right, the distribution in Honolulu County for the tsunami hazard is much different than what we were seeing for Harris County for FEMA. Of course, we wouldn't want you to compare that. It's comparing apples to oranges. This is just to show you that there are certainly different levels of hazard exposure across the country for different hazards. So if we were to hover into the gray, approximately 50% of all establishments are outside of tsunami hazard areas in Honolulu. That being said, that means we have 44% of establishments within a tsunami hazard area, which is certainly material. And within that 44%, approximately 39 are non-marine economy establishments, and approximately 5% are marine economy establishments. And next to the percent, it also indicates the number of establishments. Alrighty. So before I kick it back to Charlotte, I will quickly go over hurricane storm surge and sea level rise as well. So for hurricane storm surge, we are going to go back to the southeast region now, to Miami-Dade County. And we'll go ahead and click on hurricane storm surge. Again, we've got our statement above the map indicating that it's been mapped for special flood hazard areas, hurricane storm surge, and sea level rise. Again, on the left-hand side with our legend, this is another high exposure county as it relates to hurricane storm surge. It ranks higher than 100% of the counties analyzed in this data set. I do want to draw your attention to the pop-up for this hazard because this pop-up looks different than the last 2 pop-ups that we saw. So the map itself for hurricane storm surge is mapped to the category 4 inundation mapping. We do have goals in the future of perhaps including mapping across all 4 categories, but for right now, the mapping is for Cat 4. That being said, we did want to include information in the pop-up about the exposure for storm surge across categories 1 through 4. So that is what we tried to do in this first table up top. And then below that, we have a graph which indicates the number of establishments in storm surge areas by hurricane category. The yellow reddish bars include the total number of establishments across the county. And again, you can kind of just hover over them to see the number of establishments that are exposed, or the number of businesses, I should say. And then the smaller blue bars on the right-hand side do the same thing by category for the marine economy. And we wanted to do this in particular so that folks could have a visual sense of when there was any kind of large jumps in storm surge or in exposure between categories. All right, last but not least, we'll go over to sea level rise. And we are trying to show you several different regions. So for sea level rise, we are going to go up to the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, Hudson County, New Jersey. And similar to hurricane storm surge, the mapping that we've used for this particular layer is the 10-foot sea level rise mapping. That being said, again, within our pop-up, we did want to show additional information. So our pop-up here indicates the number of establishments and jobs at risk in Hudson County from 2 feet to 10 feet of sea level rise in 2-foot increments. That being said, if you were to open up the Excel or CSV file, as Charlotte noted, we do include information from 1 to 10 feet in 1-foot increments. Now, if you were interested in learning more about a particular county's exposure to sea level rise, you could click on NOAA's Coastal County Snapshots button or the NOAA Sea Level Rise Viewer, and it would take you to those kind of separate tools to help you explore sea level rise exposure for this particular county in greater detail. Below this table, again, we have another graph, which indicates the number of establishments, business establishments, I should say, affected per foot of sea level rise. And again, our goal with this graph in particular was to was so that viewers could potentially see any large jumps in exposure between 1 foot of sea level rise to another. And in fact, we actually can see that here. We see a fairly large jump between 4 feet of sea level rise, at which point we have 529 businesses that would be affected or exposed, and 5 feet of sea level rise, which jumps to over 20 or over 2,200 businesses. So that is what I have for you in terms of the data viewer. This is the first iteration of this data viewer, so we do have some great goals for it in mind that Charlotte is going to talk about, and we also welcome any feedback that you may have for us in terms of ways that we can make this more useful for our intended audiences.
Thank you so much, Polina. The Employment and Coastal Inundation Zones database is unique on several counts. First, it is available for public download access across several years. As we just saw, it also includes data on 4 major inundation hazards across nearly all coastal U.S. states and counties. Beyond this, it is the only authoritative source of data of its kind that provides insights on an industry level and by ocean sector. Of course, we do have limitations. There are gaps and suppressions in the data to protect private entities, and we are limited to county level data, but for a national data set, this is pretty standard. As Polina mentioned, this is the very first iteration of this tool. In the future, we are looking to update the data viewer from various directions. From a mapping perspective, we have plans to update our color ramps, symbology, the geography labels, all to maximize quick communication. For analysis, we are exploring ways to toggle between the hazards or layer them to show relationships within the data. We will also be expanding the direct links to data sources for each county, and we are also planning on making a mobile viewer for phones and tablets. As Polina mentioned, any feedback on this tool is welcome. And that is the end of our presentation. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Great. Thank you so much both for all of that. Audience, we have plenty of time to answer your questions, and we would love to hear them. And with that, we have already had our first question come in, so I will get that up on screen for you. Why is there no data for states like Massachusetts or New York?
Great question. Charlotte, would you like to take that one, or I can take it, whatever your preference is?
If you don't mind.
Sure.
You got it.
So there are 4 non-participatory states, is what we call them. Those are states. Those states include Massachusetts and New York. I believe What's
New
the third
Hampshire
one?
and Michigan.
Thank you. New Hampshire and Michigan are the third and fourth states. This means that they do not participate in they have certain laws which are intended to maintain the privacy of their business establishments and their kind of registries. So there are certain data that they either do not share directly with the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or they do not allow the Bureau of Labor Statistics to share that data with us. So unfortunately, we could not ascertain data for those four non-participatory states. Great question, though. And that kind of limitation and data gap also extends to our other data that we produce. So data for the marine economy, for example, also does not include those non-participatory or non-P states for short. Great
Great.
question.
Thank you for your response. And then our next question is, I had to join late. Is there a website link for these tools?
Yes, absolutely, and we can send that to you in the chat. I think might be best. So I will go ahead and right now in the chat send you our content landing page for for the employment in coastal inundation zones in particular. So if you navigate to that page, you can access the underlying data from that page by clicking View for Data Sets. You can also launch the viewer directly from that page by clicking on a button which says Launch Viewer in the title banner. And then below that, we also have some additional information. So we've got kind of a very short kind of fast facts infographic banner. And then for anyone who's super interested in the data viewer itself, you can navigate to ArcGIS Online for the contents page related to the viewer itself, which is an experience builder, or to the underlying web map or the feature hosted layers, if that's something that you'd like to download for yourself. And I also did share a link to our kind of general page for the coastal and ocean economy, where you can explore all sorts of data as it relates to the marine and coastal economies. You can also explore things like trainings and some research there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have had another question come through. Has BLS granted you access to establishment level microdata or just to county level summaries by NAICS codes of establishments within economic segments?
This is a great question. So there is public BLS data that just is aggregated numbers, and then when we go to BLS, we're given access to the microdata in their building, and then we have code that we run that removes the private information and any protected information. So when we leave, we do not have the microdata, but we have the numbers that create the microdata, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you. And then we had a question come in through the audience chat, so I can't put it on the screen for everyone, but I'll read it out loud. To clarify, for the SFHA data in the Great Lakes, when you refer to marine versus non-marine type, does that refer to coastal versus non-coastal establishments and jobs, given it is not marine environments? Is there any future plans for the Great Lakes specifically?
Yes. So we have the marine economy and then the total economy. So the marine economy jobs that are highlighted in the tool are jobs that are specifically related to being on the water. And that those sectors, as we mentioned in this presentation, include like fishing, tourism and recreation, ship and boat building, etc. So yes, if it is a coastal job or establishment, then it is included in the marine economy.
And just for kind of further clarification, we used to, I think, refer to this as the ocean economy. We now refer to it as the marine economy. They're used kind of interchangeably, but we refer to it as the marine economy because we do actually include marine economy information on the Great Lakes. And the way in which those sectors are formed are through NAICS codes or a North American industry classification system. It's a kind of a hierarchical system of codes. So we kind of draw directly from those codes and from Bureau of Labor Statistics data to generate data that is specific to the marine economy. We do this across all coastal counties, including counties adjacent to all Great Lakes.
Great. Thank you for your response. I did have a question myself about when you talked about in the tool, the ability to share or embed it. Is that just sharing the tool itself, or if you had like a specific county or something pulled up, does it share like when people follow that link, would it take them to that county, or is it just to the tool?
That is actually such a great question. I have not tried that myself. I am seeing that as I kind of update things on my end, the link to share is getting updated. So I would imagine that it's actually going to take you directly to kind of like the view that I have created, right? Whatever county I've selected and whatever hazard I've selected. But I would fact check me on that one.
Will do. Thank you.
If anyone embeds our map in your site, please share it with us. We would love to see it.
Yes, we would absolutely love that.
Excellent. Okay, well, nothing else has come in, so I think we've answered everyone's questions. So I'll go ahead and wrap up today's seminar presentation. Thank you both again for joining us. And as I said earlier, thank you, Kate, for organizing today's event. Audience, we hope to see you at our next library seminar. Thank you for attending today's event and enjoy the rest of your day.